Voyce knows the power of polar bears. A giant bear tracked him down, clamped its jaws around his head.
I just let that bear shake me all around. I didn't move muscle, I didn't breathe.
John Bykerk almost met the same fate.
As I opened the door to throw the garbage in, I saw a large polar bear looking back over its shoulder, gave a real good snarl at me.
A hungry bear trapped in the back of his garbage truck. And Sheldon Oliver was hunted down in his remote lodge.
It perked up, looked, and came running straight for me.
Right across the Arctic, residents are on alert. Bears have killed many humans. Special patrols have been set up to frighten them off. With their habitat diminishing, attacks are on the rise as hungry bears scavenge for food in Arctic towns. But not every encounter is deadly. Many are inspirational, like the family who lives out on the tundra, filming bears every day.
I kind of get all choked up every time I see one.
And the photographer who's lived with them for years, capturing every aspect of their fascinating lives.
Everything is happening in the Arctic. You just have to open up your eyes and to see it all.
Encounters that are uplifting, others that are outright frightening.
He wasn't going to let me go. I was his supper.
Ahead, the Arctic residents who spend their lives living with polar bears. On the western edge of Canada's Hudson Bay, the polar bears are congregating. It's late October, and it's this time and place where the bears of this subpopulation wait patiently. It's here the ice first forms, allowing them to reach their winter hunting ground. With such a gathering comes the bear lovers, protected high up in purpose-built buggies that keep them safe but guarantee them close viewing. One of these buggies has been converted for a very special family, the Zatzes. They're a filmmaking duo who travel with their 2-year-old son to capture some very inspirational encounters.
There we go. The simple overall idea is that we're sharing images of these bears with the world. And the bears have a lot of stresses on them, as many people are becoming aware. So we're trying to make sure that people can connect with these animals by seeing them, because they're just gorgeous, especially when you can zoom in, you know, right up and fill the frame with a bear's face and see the wind blowing on their fur. We're streaming live to National Geographic from the 2 cameras on opposite ends of the buggy. Actually, there are 2 bears up here, so I think we'll go up to here. And then we're also shooting in high definition from here, from the buggy. We have an HD edit system on the buggy and a T1 link so we can upload from here every night and get HD to the world. You guys okay back there? Okay. You know, this is a great place for a little guy. Yeah. You know, he's got his own little play area where he plays with his trains, and he gets to see the bears. We're gonna shut off buggy 1. All right, there we go. Well, we've got bears right over here, and there's a camera up here, and in general, the best view of any animal is down at its eye level. So I have an electric jib, and I'll lower the jib down so that we can get as low as possible, and as we do that, we get a better view of the bears and their environment, because we get to see the horizon too. And we have a bear and we have its horizon right here. So you can see here that, you know, it's so much more of an intimate view having that camera be low. Oh, look at that, you can see the vapor, the breath coming out from this bear. We can turn the camera left and right, up and down, and then bring the whole camera up and down on this jib. With this device, we have the ability to get right into the bear's world. And I think for our audience, they're getting to see a lot more what polar bears are about. At first, the bears really saw this as a curiosity, and they were touching it, and there's a spot right here where a female bit it. We heard this crunch, and she had bit it. But as time passes, they really are seeming to ignore it, and it's turning out to be hugely successful. From here, we take the video and we digitize it. We have an antenna on the roof. We send that to the lodge, and from there, through a bunch of repeaters, back to the world. This is what's on the internet. It's about 40-second delayed. Here's what we just saw a few seconds ago. But this is what the world is seeing. So we have confirmation that we're actually being seen around the world if anybody wants to watch it.
We've got a bear out here, actually straight off the corner here, and I'm just moving the camera to try to compose a nice shot, trying to get some variety for the viewers. You know, some close shots, some wide angle shots. It's really fun when we've got a couple that are playing. We've had several pairs that, I mean, they'll play for 30 or 40 minutes nonstop. You know, 700 pounds pushing against 700 pounds. It's pretty amazing. Like watching a couple little kids wrestle each other. Clearly, all of the bears have different personalities, but certainly the bears that we've seen over the last week, they're all behave very differently.
That evening, Danny Zatz comes face to face with a very curious bear.
You are awful big. Well, I think this is Dancer. Dancer's a new arrival here. We were told that he would show up in early November, and on November 4th, we had our first visit from him. Beautiful bear, gorgeous bear, really mellow. Wow. You are one big polar bear. When his nose is sitting right here, it's hard to know how far he could go if he really tried. He's like a dog that's just waiting for a meal to be served. Hi. Yeah. Hello.
Then, without warning, the giant Dancer is attacked by a female bear protecting her cubs.
Wow. It appears that the polar bear mothers who are coming in with 1 or 2 cubs, they really have a tough task here because they're trying to defend their cubs and create space around them all the time. And it's not space against us humans, it's space against some of the biggest bears that are roaming the tundra here. Yeah, I don't think it's over, Lisa. The thinking around this part of the world is that polar bears are extremely predatory and that you don't get anywhere near them, so we're all in these tin cans protected from them and somewhat removed from them. I've been on the ground I've touched soil maybe for a total of 5 minutes in the last 2 weeks. That's strange. You know, all of us would much rather be walking on the ground, but I don't think we have quite a good enough sense of these bears to know what exactly is safe yet.
Every day I think about how fortunate all of us are, really. People just don't get to do this. Being here with them has made me even more aware of the potential impact of the changes that we're seeing in the climate, and I kind of get all choked up every time I see one, because all I can think, and every time I'm close to the bears, I just say to them, I hope the ice comes in soon and that you get lots of seals.
The Arctic wilderness is home to some 22,000 polar bears. Most live in remote areas, well away from humans. But in northern Canada, a town has been built right on the polar bear's migration route. Churchill is home to some 1,000 people who have to deal with the bears when they come close to town. One resident who's published a book on the bears of Churchill is Kelsey Eliasson.
You start thinking about polar bears and I guess, mid to late June, and you know, they're always kind of in the back of your mind right up until the end of November. This summer has been crazy for bears, but now the recycling center is closer to town. You know, we got some challenges with that, so there's still a whole bunch of garbage sitting in there right now, and it's making for a pretty wild year. It's safe to say there'll be more bears in town this year, and I mean, it's also close to the airport, so I'm sure there'll be one flight that has to abort its landing because there's a bear on the runway. Twice this summer there's been bears on the runway, but no planes have been coming in, but we'll see, it'll happen. That the bears are really, you know, they're restless, they're waiting to get out in the ice, so they're more active, it's cooler, it's nicer, they're more likely to come into town. I mean, if anybody's going out on the land, nobody goes out without a gun. You never know. I mean, 99% of bears they're pretty cool, but it's the one bear that isn't that you need it for. So if you want to coexist with wildlife, you know, it's better to take precautions than to pay for it.
One resident who knows the power of polar bears is Sonny Voyce. He's learned a deep respect of bears from the day 20 years ago when he went out fishing with some mates. What started out as a day of recreation quickly turned into a near-fatal encounter.
The tide was out, so the fish weren't biting, and it was so hot, I stopped in a creek, and I had a bath to cool off in that creek. And while I was in that creek, that bear came from the island that I was going to and walked past me. The wind was blowing that way, and that's why I got past the bear, and the bear was in the willows there. And the tide was out, so I saw the tracks, so I knew that bear was over there. But I couldn't walk back. I wasn't going to walk back towards him. And then I started walking back, but I stayed way out by the shoreline. But the tide came in and was pushing me in towards the willows. I was only about 400 yards away from the camp, and when the wind blew my scent to him, that's when he smelled me. I just heard the growl, and I looked back, and he was already in his attack mode. He was on his two hind legs, and his two front paws were already starting to come down, and he was coming full blast at me. So I just waved my arms at him and yelled, and I was attracting my partners. I ran towards the water to give them a broadside shot of the bear, but two of them were sleeping and two of them were in the river fishing. Well, that's when I had no choice but to dive into the ground. As soon as I saw a rut where the tidal waters were running down, that's where I dove in to protect my face and head. And I put my arms up like that, and he grabbed me, and I just heard all the bones. It sounded like they were all crushed in my head. My whole head was inside his mouth. Well, I thought that I was dead. I thought, well, you gotta go sometime, and this is a hell of a way to go. And I just said, I love you, God, and I loved you, Mom. And that was it. I just played dead, and I just let that bear shake me all around. I didn't move muscle, I didn't breathe, I didn't do a thing. I could hear him sniffing at the other guys. 5 guys were standing there looking at me, and they couldn't shoot because the bear was standing up and looking at them, and he had me in his mouth, and he was shaking me around like a rag doll. And they couldn't shoot because I was dangling right in front of them. And then he dragged me back to the willows where he was hiding. He wasn't going to let me go. I was his supper. I could feel his paw on my back. He was holding me down, and I was still holding my breath. And he kept me there until they all came running with 5 guns, and they started shooting right through the willows. Because by then they thought I was dead, so all they did was open fire, and there's sounded like a firing range. Just fire shots going all over the place. And one of them hit the bear because I heard the bear grunting and he could hardly breathe. And that's when I finally took another breath of fresh air. I tell you, it seemed like I held my breath for 3 or 4 minutes, and I could still hear the guys shooting, so I wouldn't get up because I knew they were shooting. I wasn't going to stand up and get shot myself. And then finally I heard that last good shot. You could hear the shot hit solid bone and the bear dropped, and I knew the bear wasn't getting up. And then I stood up. So I was walking along, looking, and I heard one of the guys say, "Holy shit, he's still alive." They didn't believe it, that I was still alive, and I was walking, looking, and I guess from loss of blood, I just dropped. And that's when Chrissy came along and put me in his lap. They made a stretcher and took me to the boat and hauled me back here to Churchill. And they had the ambulance and the doctors waiting for us on the shore. Well, I was in the hospital in Winnipeg for about three weeks. Yeah, all the doctors couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe it at all. One tooth, the doctor said he couldn't figure out how I was still alive because that one was right against my spinal cord. That was his killer tooth, I guess you could call it. And one you can see right here, it just missed my eye. And there was another one that just missed a jugular. So my whole head was right inside that bear's mouth. I couldn't believe it, I was still alive.
As the waters of Hudson Bay begin to freeze up in October every year, the polar bears congregate, waiting to go out onto the ice in search of their favourite food, ringed seals. So many bears in such close proximity is a photographer's dream, which is why German photographer Norbert has been coming here for the past 20 years.
It has been 10 years altogether. I have done 2 books actually. The first one was from the 10 years before, but the last one we are looking at now is the last 10 years, and I would say that was altogether 30 trips over from Germany to Canada, and I've been all over the Arctic, over the Canadian Arctic to complete that book. Every year it's something new, it's something different, and there are always moments I never expected that would come up. I always like to take pictures of Arctic foxes, of snowdrifts, Arctic hare, musk oxen, walruses, seals, northern lights, all kinds of different shapes in the Arctic, different light. Everything is happening in the Arctic. You just have to open up your eyes and to see it all. Obviously, my focus are the polar bears. Yeah, I'm photographing bears since almost 20 years, and I'm still coming almost every year. In the 20 years, I missed just 2 years. I try to get them with fighting and sparring, and I like it especially with against the sun, that you see the snow flying, or I like it very much sparring in snowstorms when it's all white in white. Only once or twice in 5 or 6 years you have a situation like that. Of course, the crown jewels is the bears coming out of the den with the cubs, and that happens in March and April.
Of all of Norbert's experiences, one of his favourites involved a polar bear and a very frisky Arctic fox.
As a bear was sleeping in a day den, and just sleeping there waiting for the ice to form, and Arctic fox came from behind, and I couldn't figure out what he's doing, but he was biting the bear in the butt. And the bear was very mad, and he went up and made a lot of noise and tried to catch the fox, but of course he couldn't get him. So the bear laid down again, the fox came again, and it was going on for about 20 minutes, and the bear got bitten about 10 times in that time. The only explanation I have for this behavior is that the fox is hungry. He wants to tell the bear, go out on the ice, catch some seals. I cannot carry out the seals, I cannot pull them out. So the fox is telling the bear, go over there and get me something to eat.
One resident of Churchill, the woman who runs the Tundra buggy company that takes so many visitors out to see the polar bears, is Linda Gunter.
One thing about Churchill that a lot of people don't understand is it's considered an isolated community. You can't get in a car and drive to Churchill, which makes it very unique because you either have to fly in or take the train in. It's a small community. There's only about 800 or 900 residents here. And during bear season, which we're at right now, that population really swells because we get so many visitors that come specifically because they're excited about seeing polar bears. It is the only place in the world that you're going to get people and bears in the same place in pretty close proximity. The reason we're seeing bears around this area is because Churchill happened to have been built in the middle of their migration route. And that's the kind of thing that people here in Churchill have learned to live with. Children walking to school obviously have to be careful that there are no bears in back alleys. And those are the kinds of things that children here are taught right from the time they're little. But it is a reality that there are bears and people in the community, especially at this time of the year.
Polar bears are such a real threat to the people of Churchill, a special protection patrol has been set up.
We have a bear line set up in the community. It's kind of like a 911 type of number. If you see a bear around the community, call 675-BEAR. And there's 3 of us on call at all times during the active bear season, and we'll respond and try and move the bear away from the area.
Well, they like to travel along the coast, and we'd sooner intercept them along the way as opposed to having to deal with them in town. You know, we don't want them headed towards town, towards the coast, or, you know, further along the coast is fine.
So we catch bears year after year in traps, but some of them get wise to it, and it depends on the bait, I think.
Well, the bear goes in there, he pulls that bar with that bait sack, and it in turn pulls a pin out of this notch and the door falls. It's basically their favorite food. Oh yeah, they're hungry this time of year, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, this season started early. I think we started having bears around mid-July, and it's been carrying on straight through, and it will carry through till freeze-up. It's just where the last chunk of ice came close to shore, happened to be close to the town of Churchill. So the bears got off close to Churchill, got off the ice close to Churchill.
When it gets busy, it's pretty much an everyday occurrence. It's not your everyday, ordinary profession, that's for sure. They're a wild animal, they're unpredictable, and really, you're in their environment. They live out here. They'll stalk, they'll hunt, and they'll eat. I'm sure they'd prefer seal, but they're opportunists, so if it's a free meal, it's a free meal. But that's why we have this program, so they don't really get that opportunity. We have a 12-gauge cracker shell gun and a scare pistol that works off of like a 22 shell. It's a series of loud noises that get them going. You know, sometimes they get used to loud bangs, so you might try one of those screamers and it'll work. They don't like that loud whistle, and it'll get them moving. If a bear was to come at us or whatever, you know, it was a matter of life and death, then we would have no choice but to put it down. But I've been here 4 years and never had that happen.
We get a variety of bears that come in and cause problems. The younger bears that are just been removed from their mothers are obviously more curious, and they're looking for something to eat. It's that time of year. I mean, they're scavenging for food wherever they can get it, just prior to the ice making up.
We're gonna see what's gonna happen with L5, because there's definitely an attractant there, and how much of an issue it's gonna be, it's too early to tell. The smell is there, there's gonna be bears around there.
The danger is just it's an area frequented by people. I mean, everyone hauling their garbage away, so it's not a safe place to have them.
We've had this last couple of days more and more bears starting to show up.
So if we can move them off and keep them safe without putting them in the holding facility, and would be great. So we'll try and move them off. And if they come back, we will likely immobilize them and put them into the holding facility.
Those bears that are held in the polar bear jail can be kept here for up to 6 weeks. They'll be given no food in that time, a deterrent to keep them from coming back to town, and will be finally released well away from Churchill. The working dogs of the Arctic, like the Siberian Huskies with their thickly furred double coat, are superbly adapted to the sub-zero winter conditions of Hudson Bay. They're the traditional sled dogs, used to haul tourists across snow-covered slopes in the hope of seeing wildlife, like the polar bears that congregate here. One resident very thankful for his vigilant dogs is Sheldon Oliver, alerted to an attacking bear that he had to kill.
It was 2 years ago, October. We had one of our bears who I guess you could say was exhibiting problem behavior. He was traveling around this area where some people have their homes and their cabins, and was breaking in to these places. It's likely that it was rewarded on one of these break-ins with food, and then was visiting every place subsequently looking for the same things. Then over a 10-day period, we had bears breaking into these places. The break-ins continued. There was no success with capturing the bear in the culvert traps. So Natural Resources posted themselves out here on day 9 and 10, and the bear didn't show. On the night they decided not to stay, the bear showed up and I was here. I woke up to my dog team in the driveway barking, which is uncustomary for sled dogs because they don't bark. So I opened the door, the bear was amongst the dogs. I yelled at the bear to get its attention off my dogs. Hey! It perked up, looked, and came running straight for me, so then I just slammed the door. So when the bear approached as far as the door, I realized that it wasn't going to stop. I slammed the door shut, and the bear was pounding against the door like this. I had no line of defense, so I ran upstairs. So I ran into the room. I quickly opened the window, and I yelled at the bear, "Hey!" At this point, the dog is clamping the bear and actually drawing blood, and the bear is basically swatting at the dog with very little interest, and all its attention is on the door. And he continued pushing on the door, at which point I had no choice but to shoot the bear. Because of the close range, I shot the bear in the head, and it was dead immediately. It felt nothing. It collapsed in exactly the same position. I mean, poof, it was instantly dead. Hey! I love polar bears. They're a magnificent animal, and that's why I'm here, is to spend time with them, learn more about them, and ultimately take people out and show them bears. I've had to deal with many bears, many problem bears. This particular situation, I just never want to have to do it again. Since then, I have taken precautions to secure my home better so that I can ward off the bear rather than it come into my home. Hey!
As they wait for the ice to form, polar bears can become very playful. They conduct these antics in full view of the bear lovers, who'll travel out across the frozen tundra to watch them from the safety of tundra buggies, converted buses fitted with large tractor wheels. Among these bear lovers is Robert Buchanan, president of an organisation dedicated to saving the ice bear as a species, Polar Bears International.
They're absolutely magnificent creatures. They really will steal your heart. Until you get out here and experience the actual bear itself, from its size to the impact that it has, you will never understand the power of these animals. Polar bears are so impressive not only because of their size, but how quiet and peaceful they are as they walk through. They actually can walk up on you and you never would hear them. The polar bears at this particular point in time looks to be in serious trouble. With the loss of sea ice, which is a platform from which they can hunt from, will absolutely mean that they're going to lose weight and it's going to be the ultimate point of their demise. One of the most exciting moments I ever had with bears is a very large 1,200-pound bear came around with a great deal of confidence. He came up to the coach right here, stuck his head over and hit the door with both paws and with a tremendous force, ripping through both deadbolts, ripping off the hinges of the door flying back with a great deal of momentum, only for me to face this bear as it's getting ready to come in and have me for lunch. I'm standing there looking at this 1,200-pound bear, not knowing what to do other than panic and thinking my life was just going to disappear. The only weapon that I had was a broom. I quickly grabbed the broom, smacked it across the snout, only for him to look at me like I was crazy. I did it one more time. He shook his head and backed off. It was rather exhilarating that day. I had a little time to recover from that, and as a matter of fact, I still have nightmares on it every once in a while.
Hundreds of bear watchers each day means that truckloads of garbage are collected. And that collection of rubbish is an almighty temptation for hungry bears, as Tundra Buggy Operations Manager John Bykerk discovered first thing one morning.
Well, in the morning as we opened up for our day of business, I had some garbage that I had cleaned up in the van and on the launch, and came over to the garbage truck here in order to put it away for the day. Came over to get access to the dump truck. As I opened the door to throw the garbage in, I saw a large polar bear looking back over its shoulder, gave a real good snarl at me. Closed the door as quickly as I could, put the pin in as fast as I could, and took care of matters outside to make sure that we didn't have a situation that we didn't want to deal with. He's inside the truck right now. If it's the same bear we've had problems with before, he's not particularly afraid of anything that we've done to deter him. He's broken inside before, and obviously we're going to have to find different measures to deal with this situation. We've got a number of people coming out today to view polar bears, but we want to just manage the situation so we have control of that one for the moment. So we've got a very tricky situation going on here right now. He could break out right now, and that's the situation that we're trying to manage just by keeping people off the ground, letting people go on, the tourists go on with the day and see the bears the way we want them to see them, and we'll just try and manage this as best we can. We had it happen once last week, and we reinforced our garbage truck. We put a number of nails on, the Churchill welcome mat, as they say, but obviously this bear has found ulterior ways to get involved.
It's at this point in the drama that the Polar Bear Alert Patrol arrives.
There's the door in the back opens up, or we can pull the truck away. Okay, when we start up the engine, my only concern is however he got in, he might bolt. And the only thing we can think of is he came from the back underneath, so you might want somebody on the back side of the trailer.
The plan is to drive the truck away from the depot and hope the bear jumps free.
Yeah, go that way, you're clear. You know, at this point, I still have absolutely no idea how it could have gotten in. The bear had broken in once before in a hole that was so small that I'm not sure I could have crawled through it. and yet this 500 or 600 pound polar bear is getting through it. They're amazingly nimble and agile, and it's a real testament to how adaptive and cunning they really are.
Another facility where starving bears have caused havoc with garbage is the Churchill Northern Study Centre.
We keep the garbage in here for the centre, and when we have a load, we're taking him into town, right? What happened in the middle of the night, apparently a bear came over, and the doors were open, he was able to pull it back. And you just peel it down halfway down this way, but this one we had to use a forklift and to push it back up. So we could get it in a position where we could lock the doors again. You can see here where he pounced, these lines are all from the paws. Like they're usually pushing instead of pulling. He must have just pushed it in there. Nobody hurt him. You can see where he cut it right open in here. He's pretty clever. He knows when everybody's sleeping. I'm trying to figure out another way too. Put like one of these light sensors and get a horn or something like that on the bottom of a van. So when each time he comes, the horn will go on. But that would wake up our customers, eh? He won't go back in the cage. He's already been caught twice, so he doesn't want to go for another helicopter ride. He's tired of walking back and forth.
Daley is a hunter. His quarry, the largest of the deer family, the moose.
Well, I was out moose hunting one day, up the river about 30 miles where you wouldn't think you'd see a polar bear. And we were hiking around looking for a moose sign, and we're up on this high bank. And I sat down to rest. My friend that was with me was standing up in the trees, a little higher than me in a little bit of breeze like today. And I had my legs over the side, and I looked down and I said, "Hey, look, Don, the bank fell away here." And Don looked down and he goes, "Oh yeah." And I heard this hiss, like, and I went, "Oh." I said, "What was that, Don? Did you hear that?" And he goes, "I didn't hear anything," because he was up with the breeze in his ears, so I was down low. All of a sudden I heard again another hiss. Now, growing up in Churchill, I know when I hear a bear. And I said, "Donnie, there's a bear here somewhere." And all of a sudden my legs went up in the air, and I was clambering backwards, and I came back down, and I went down, and I looked down. I could feel something moving, and right in between my legs was a big polar bear head, right out of a den that was in the bank, right above where I was sitting. So then I just jumped right up and took off the opposite direction. He said, "Good joke." And I said, "It's not a joke, man." So we went down off the ridge, hiked back down along the river, and looked up, and I gave a moose call, and that bear in that den took her head right out of the den and put it right where my lap would have been, on my lap where I was sitting. Last thing I expected was to be sitting over a bear's den. You know, it just shows that in Churchill, you never know when you're going to run into a polar bear. It could be out your back door, it could be walking to your car, it could be walking to work, it could be anywhere. You always got to be aware in this country.
One man who has spent years observing polar bears in the Canadian wilderness is author and researcher Fred Bruemmer. Fred has walked for days at a time past hundreds of polar bears without a gun or any other protection to reach an observation tower.
Well, the whole tower idea was to observe bears, to see bear behavior, because until then, they'd been capture, recapture, but nobody actually watched bears. So I went up in the tower and spent with another guy, friend of mine, and we spent weeks and weeks and weeks sitting up in that tower with provisions for a month and just watched the bears. And then, of course, the second year, we could see it was the same bears that came back. The same bears that we'd seen the year before came back again to the same location. And one thing that you find out is that bears are highly individualistic. Each bear is a separate personality.
So some are quite aggressive, some are very friendly, some are quite chummy with each other, others are really hostile, they just lie apart. So it's a wide range of behavior that had not been watched until then.
One behaviour that Fred has documented many times in his numerous books on the Arctic is the aggression displayed by male bears against young cubs.
Males at this time of the year are very hungry and are very likely to try and get a cub. Now, if they do, she will fight fiercely to protect her cubs. If she's a young female and it's her first set of twins, she may not be able to protect both of them. I've seen cubs killed. It's awful. It's really sad.
Fred Bruemmer has had his own close encounters with aggressive male bears.
Basically, polar bears are fairly friendly, or at least fairly indifferent to humans. They're curious about you. They'll come around and walk and have a look, but they won't do very much. The trouble is, every once in a while, there is one bear that's truly aggressive, for no particular reason at all. It just happens to be like a human. You have some friendly ones and some aggressive ones. Well, the first time I really ran into a bad bear, I mean, you know, an evil bear practically. There were 3 bears. One was in a trap, which we set. So we caught one bear, and 2 bears were on a rock ridge, not very far away. And I was going to go over and photograph them, and without a gun or anything like that. And for some reason or other, normally Dr. Jungle didn't worry too much about it. He said, no, I better come along. He had a gun. He had a .45 Magnum, it was a big gun. And we walked a little bit towards the rock ridge, and all of a sudden one of those bears walked slowly down the ridge, and then all of a sudden at about 50 yards he came streaking across. I mean, he came out to kill. And I mean, it's impressive. They have these sharp claws, and they can accelerate to 35 miles an hour in seconds. And, you know, it was only 50 yards or something like that, and he just came streaking across. Jungle shot 3 times in front of him into the gravel, and that turned him around, and he took off. This was a bear that would kill. I mean, 99% probably don't, but that 1% that will, you just don't have a chance. It's a very powerful animal.
It's late October on Cape Churchill, and the Tundra buggies are on patrol. One of the founding buggy drivers is Glenn Hoffner, whose encounters with thousands of bears has led to him writing his own book.
Sheldon would be happy to do that for you.
Glenn has developed his own signals for attracting the bears.
There's a bear coming around our side here, and I'm going to try to get him to come up on our buggy. I've been watching bears for 12 years, and I know how they communicate. They like to blow and whistle and things like that. I had a few close calls, and just watching what they can do and how quick they can move. You just got to be very careful all the time. You know, got some bears are acting friendly. Every bear has his own personalities. In what I've witnessed over the years. Some are very aggressive, some are docile, some are friendly.
Occasionally, Glenn has had to leave the safety up his buggy for maintenance, a surefire time to come face to face with a bear.
Well, underneath his buggy, blocking the ice off the steering jacks. I just happened to glance, had a feeling something was glance over my right shoulder, and there's a bear's head about 2 feet from my right foot. We made eye contact, and my only instinct was to get the heck out of there. The ground was frozen. I'm a pretty big boy. I had a hard time. I just, as fast as I could, went forward, started digging, banged my head against the first differential, struggled my way through. Next thing I know, I'm standing beside this fire here. Took a look around. Couldn't see the bear anywhere. Looked panicking. I ran as fast as I could towards the end of the ramp, and got there, closing the gate. Then the bear is standing right there. He's another 2 feet from my foot. I was trying to get the steel latch closed, and next thing I see is it's a rough lumber door. There's about that much space between the planks. I was pulling as hard as I could to try to get this thing closed, and the next thing I see is this bear's claw about an inch from my eyeball. So the bear stood up. The gate actually hit the bear's nose, went back like this, and this bear was at least 1.5 feet taller than I am. I could smell his breath, and he was that far from me. And I could feel him starting to pull the door away. So if I happened to get all that adrenaline rush, I guess, I managed to get that door closed. Thank God that thing slammed shut. And then the bear got really angry, started to try to climb over the gate. And I ran upstairs, grabbed the Bruemmer shovel, started banging together, trying to scare the bear. That even got him more aggravated. Then he knew where I was because of the sound. Next thing I see, there's a bear's paws beside my foot again on top of the ramp. Somebody left a gate open. I managed to get that closed, and light went on my head, go inside the buggy. Well, it's going to be safe inside the buggy.
Another close call came when he was refueling his buggy.
I was outside the buggy. It was about 7 o'clock at night, dark of course, and I was fueling my buggy, putting fuel from the foremost into this buggy. And it's dark outside. I had my headlights on. The buggy's running. I looked over my left shoulder, and there's a bear about 25 feet away. For some reason during the day, I had stuck an apple in my pocket, and I never even thought. I just took the apple out of my pocket, fired over the bear's head. The bear looked at the apple, went over his head, and he ran to fetch it or to pick it up. So that gave me enough time to take the hose out of my fuel tank, put the cap on, run up the steps, close the ladder, and by the time that happened, the bear was by the ladder. I went inside, the lights were on inside, he followed me back and forth, and finally went to my driver's seat. He ran up and banged the door 3 or 4 times, almost like a, come on, where's the next apple type thing. But who knows, if I wouldn't have had the apple in my pocket that day, I might not be here talking to you.
Summertime around Hudson Bay is a time of waiting for the polar bears. Some 950 bears make up this subpopulation, with many of those congregating south of Churchill around a lodge known as Nanuk. Lodge owner Stewart comes close to dozens of bears during this season.
In 1998, when we purchased the property, of course, we were pretty near scared to death of polar bears every night, dealing with polar bears. And on the second year, we put the fence up. It is a great security feature. The bears themselves are kind of attracted to us just being on location. We have a resident bear. We nickname him Sleepy. Sleepy's been here for about the last 2 weeks, and he's a frequent visitor to the fence. Usually roast beef night, the bear will come to the fence. He's pretty comfortable being around us and allowing us to get some fantastic footage and pictures of him. The fence is a definite comfort factor when we're able to get as close as a couple of feet away from him inside the fence. It hasn't caused any problems yet. A couple of small things that he's been able to grab and pull through, but that's because they were left a little too close to the fence. The U.S. flag got the worst of it. The Canadian flag got pulled down the same night. And then we also have a windsock that got pulled down. So yeah, anything flapping or moving that grabs their attention. I have a lot of faith in the fence. I have a lot of respect for the polar bear though. So, obviously we've got a firearm nearby in case things get out of hand here, but it's very common type situation to have the bears walking around the fence, and occasionally they'll stand up on it and push on it. It's a buffalo fence, 29 gauge, high tensile steel, and worth every penny of it. Pretty amazing animal right there, all 600 pounds of them. We're dealing with the world's largest carnivore right here on our doorstep, and this time of the year they're hungry. They've been fasting for a while now.
I think we've seen about 30 at least during the season, maybe more.
A lot of them times that they do approach, they'll just spook and they'll run. They don't like the smell of humans. This bear obviously has no problem with it.
When they want their space, they start chomping. Most start chomping it, and that's their warning to back off. And he hasn't done that yet.
He'll hiss at you if you get too close and probably stand up and move. It makes you feel like you're at the zoo.
Yeah, we're the zoo.